of the things that we want to consistently focus on in this episode is that energy returns when protection is no longer required. So the question becomes, what does it look like to live from energy and to live powerfully rather than from force? Which brings us to one of my favorite parts here. How do different emotions bind and release energy? So we've talked about emotion is energy in motion, and unfelt emotion is where energy gets constricted and constrained and trapped, and that felt emotion is energy released. So deep binding emotions, shame is where energy collapses, that the system contracts around your identity and self-surveillance and watching yourself all the time, that you become very self-conscious, which this podcast is difficult for me, that in daily life, I don't have any self-consciousness, really. I'm just breezing through the day. And that anytime you put me on camera, anytime you put me on a microphone, all of a sudden I get self-conscious. And I'm like, wow, I do not like this at all. It's becoming more natural, but it has been a struggle. And I can feel how much of that energy costs. That is a fortune of energy, energetically. Guilt. These guilt is energy loops and rumination that you should have, what's wrong with me, I could have done this, and it constricts action and drains your vitality. That fear and anxiety, energy scatters into scattering and anticipation, that you become hypervigilant, that you're always looking out to protect yourself, and that you burn fuel predicting threats that are never going to show up. As you move higher up the chain, the energy starts to move, even with the negative emotions, that grief, that it's heavy energy, but it's flowing downward. And it temporarily reduces your energy, but once the wave completes, it releases that energy and softens the symptom. That one of the things that comes after grief, when fully processed, is emotional freedom. And that anger is hot, it's outward, it's mobilizing, that one of the things that anger can do for you is it can get you to take action, and that it can liberate energy and allow you to express that, and that it can turn chronic resentment into energy again. Releasing emotions, that once we experience these emotions, it's going to help us release energy and become more free, that when you have courage, energy stops being spent on avoidance and it starts spending it on actions of what can become possible. Acceptance, that acceptance is energy that stops fighting reality, and a massive amount of fuel ends up getting returned to your system. Love and compassion is where there is minimal defense, and that you are in harmony with who and what is around you, and that your attention widens, that instead of being focused and having a very narrow attention, that as you expand that attention, you become more aware, and it becomes one of the beautiful things about love and harmony and joy is that you can enter very energetic states so that when people are happy, their sleep quota goes down dramatically. Their need for food goes down dramatically. Their need for sleep goes down dramatically. And that because all of that energy is becoming available to you without depletion, that you using your energy isn't depleting you, it's actually restoring you because you're in that place of love and compassion and joy. And that joy is energy circulating freely, and that creative returns, and that the system becomes regenerative. So it's not the emotions themselves that bind energy. It's the resistance to those emotions that binds the energy, that by not allowing ourselves to feel that energy and going, no thank you, no sadness today, we will just tuck that under the pillow for a couple decades down the road. That is what creates that drag on the system. That anger suppressed creates exhaustion, grief avoided creates numbness, fear denied becomes anxiety, shame believed becomes collapse, and when those emotions are allowed to move through you, it releases all that energy, which naturally leads to something deeper. If emotions bind energy and trauma is unresolved emotions plus a survival discharge, then trauma is one of the biggest hidden drains. That trauma is incomplete information. So trauma is incomplete information. Trauma isn't the event, it isn't what happened. That trauma is incomplete information stored in your nervous system. And that for the experience to resolve, the nervous system has to comprehend what happened, that it's over, that survival occurred, and what action was needed and whether it was completed. So when an experience overwhelms our emotional and physical capacity, time begins to fragment, our memories become nonlinear, sensations and emotional charges store without a coherent ending. That we have a story that is just left open, that we have this perpetual open loop of a difficult story. So instead of a complete memory, you get sensory fragments, body sensations, implicit beliefs, that you have these survival strategies for something that you're unsure about. And that your nervous system, your psyche, never receives the update that it's over and I lived. So why do triggers feel disproportionate? A trigger isn't an overreaction. It's the nervous system saying this resembles an unresolved pattern. Based on the context, the circumstances, the conditions, the time, the choices are missing, that the body responds as if it's happening again right now. And that you may freeze, that freezes buffering, that it becomes a suspended processing. It can look like numbness, disassociation, fatigue, inertia. I know what to do, but I can't do it, that the system is waiting for missing data. What action will help me resolve this safely? So talking about a traumatic situation alone isn't going to work. That cognitive insight, thinking, reasoning, analyzing provides a theoretical or conceptual information. This is knowing. But what trauma needs is a somatic information, that it needs a wisdom, visceral, or an embodied understanding. A lot of times I call wisdom, that it is felt in your body, that you have to feel safety, you have to go through the completion of the action, that you have a discharge of the survival energy, that you are able to re-regulate yourself and have a witnessed presence, that you can witness. You're able to witness the experience for yourself as yourself. And until the body receives the update, the file on this isn't going to close. That hey, we've got an open file, we've got an open loop on this situation. And that healing equals completing the loop. Healing supplies that you're safe now, that your time orientation of that was then, it is not now, that you have a choice now that you didn't have a choice then, that you have a completion of an interrupted response, that you needed to go through an entire process and you didn't get to go through that process, and that you get to witness it without abandonment. And then the nervous system can update, this no longer requires protection. That the energy is released, and that bridges to the next idea that information frees energy. One of the other things that I like to do personally to help me complete this information is I know that I like to journal, and I like to journal and do breath work. But when I journal, I use the Pennebaker method. And with the Pennebaker method, there's more to it now that I've added to it. But it's basically, what are the facts? What happened? What is the experience? As if I'm writing a police report, no emotions, just if an outside observer, this is what I said this, they said that, I did this, they did that. And then the next thing I write is, how did this land on me? How did I emotionally receive this? Why did this land on me like this? And then the third thing is, why would this person behave that way? What's my perception of their motivation of why they would do this? And then the fourth thing I write is, what would have been the most skillful way I can handle this? And when I do that 4 days in a row, it generally helps me resolve my trauma, my rumination, and get rid of all that. But that is processing and parsing that information. So information is free. And in the energy world, information is the only free energy. And in thermodynamics, free energy is energy that's available to do work. And not all energy is usable. Some of it's, as we've discussed, it's trapped, it's already spoken for, it's in disorder, it's in friction, it's in uncertainty, and information reduces uncertainty. So Claude Shannon, who's the founder of information technology, formalized information as a reduction in uncertainty. So when information enters a system, entropy goes down, guessing goes down, wasted effort goes down, usable energy goes up. That's why clarity can feel energizing. that a plan can restore movement, even if it's not a perfect plan. Like when we say trust the process, sometimes part of the process is like going through a process that is not as efficient as it could be so that you can figure out where the inefficiencies are. And you just have to go through that process of doing the process to figure out the process. And those moments where everything clicks, you have that aha moment, and that can feel like relief in your body and your mind and your soul. And that once you do that, your nervous system needs proof that uncertainty is expensive. And it's one of the biggest, I think tenacity and tolerance for uncertainty are two of the larger things that will determine success in your life. Is can you deal with uncertainty, and in the face of uncertainty, can you remain consistent? And if you're unhealthy, you're not going to be able to do that. If you are healthy, you're going to develop a capacity to go into uncertainty and come back out of uncertainty, that you're not just going to stay in a state of consistent uncertainty, but that you are going to go into it, deal with some ambiguity, and come back to what you know. And that uncertainty and ambiguity drains energy because your brain is a predicting algorithm. That what happens next? What does this mean? How do I stay safe? One of the reasons we love watching movies and reading books is as we're reading it, we're trying to predict what happens next. And if it's a good book, it surprises us. If it's a good movie, it surprises us. If it's a bad movie, we predict it the whole way through, and you're like, schlock. But it's also predicting, how do I stay safe? How do I achieve success? And clear information lowers prediction errors. And your system is able to relax because you're able to reliably predict what's coming next. If you have too much certainty in your life, you become bored. If you have too much uncertainty in your life, you become a little frantic. And that low energy is when your energy is being trapped in protection. So the antidote isn't hype of, hey, let's get you all pumped up. The antidote is clarity, regulation, completion, and alignment. So how can breathwork help you with restoring your energy? Breathwork's going to be one part of it. I think we're going to go through the entire foundation of what will give you a sense of energy, a sense of positive energy in your life that allows you to achieve fulfillment. The first thing is going to be awareness, understanding your baseline. Where are you at? That, are you aware of yourself? Are you aware of how you feel? If you are in a low energy state that is unusual, can you identify the cause? Is it physical exhaustion? Is it emotional overwhelm? Are you mentally burnt out? Are you disconnected from what you're doing? That you may need help tracking the patterns, that you need to do journaling. You may need to do energy logs. You need to track, when do I dip? When do I peak? What precedes it? What's going on in my life? That sometimes you can just look in your life and go, aha, I see what's going on here. Let's figure this out. Doing an energy journal was one of the more difficult tasks that I've done in my life. That I kept an energy journal for 30 days, and every day for 15 minutes at the end of the day, I had it on my Google Calendar. I would write for 5 minutes about what filled me with energy that day. I would write for 5 minutes about what drained me for energy that day, and then I think it was like 5 minutes of what I was grateful for that day. And that was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Like, it was incredibly emotionally taxing to write about that. But I also had a lot of great insights about my life. There was one day I was on my way to a meeting, and I did not want to go to this meeting. I desperately wanted to take a nap, and I realized that I was not actually tired. I just didn't want to go to that meeting. And I was like, yeah, all right, there may be a little something off here. Next up on being in a positive state of energy, the physical foundation, fueling the body. You have to take care of your body. That if energy is available, your body is the engine. That you need consistent sleep, having a consistent bedtime routine, as well as a consistent bedtime time and a consistent wake-up time. If you can just nail, I go to bed at this time, I wake up at this time, and there's sufficient endpoints between those things, like just having a consistent, this is when I go to bed every day, is pretty life-changing. That you should hydrate as soon as you wake up, either a half liter or 16 ounces of water. That you delay caffeine when you get out of bed by 90 to 120 minutes after waking up, and that delay caffeine upon waking up, that you're going to wait 90 to an hour and a half to 2 hours after waking up before you have caffeine, that within Within that 90 minutes of waking up, you're going to have some movement in your life, 10-minute walk outdoors, ideally in the sun. That exercise boosts your core temperature and your wakefulness. Nutritionally dense food, that eat food that your grandma saw as food. I recommend high protein, that the more that you prioritize protein in your life, I'm not saying that you should only eat protein, but the more that you prioritize protein, the more it's going to crowd out bad calories. And that will greatly help you in your life. Cold exposure. Cold showers, ice baths several times a week. I don't believe in ice baths the way that other people do. I don't think that 32-degree water is healthy for you. I think it's taxing your system, and it does make you feel better, but it's coming at a cost. And that if you took ice baths in warmer water, it would actually be healthier for you, somewhere between 55 and 75 degrees. It's still chilling. It'll still take your breath away, and that it is healthier for you in the long term because it's not coming at a shock to your system that is like when they go, oh, it releases all those endorphins. Yes, that's not natural. You're unnaturally taxing your system and burning the candle at both ends. It is not rejuvenative. It is taxing you. And that cold exposure at a slightly warmer cold temperature would be better for you. Overall, care for your body like it's a high-performance machine. I see many people who do better maintenance and care on their car than they do on their body or their mind, and that there is no investment that you're going to make long-term that is going to be better for you than the care, feeding, and watering of your body. Next up would be an emotional reset, letting go of emotional burdens. This is one of the big things that we help people with in breathwork. At the beginning of the journey is often letting go of those emotional bricks they've been carrying around their entire life or stuffing down. You can do it through journaling, therapy, honest conversations with people. Of course, I recommend breathwork. And that once you let go of those emotional boundaries, this is going to help you set boundaries so that you can protect your energy by saying no to draining people and activities. That it becomes much easier once you realize what good energy feels like. It's much easier to say no to people who aren't bringing joy to your life. That allows you to cultivate joy in your life, that you can have hobbies, laughter, moments of gratitude, that you have these social moments with friends that are enriching and rewarding. A lot of emotional clarity when we begin this work, it's like clearing out a junk drawer or a junk closet if you have something bigger than a junk drawer. When you first go to organize it, it looks worse than when you started. Like the middle part is terrible. You're like, we have definitely regressed. There has been a regression. Nobody's pleased with this. And then in the end, it all comes together very quickly. So one of the things I see with people when they start letting go of emotional burdens is they get to the messy middle and quit. And it's keep going. It's going to resolve. This is another one of those trust the processes, that once you organize that emotional junk drawer, your life is going to be much easier. Mental clarity, rewiring your mind. That one of the things that we do with breathwork is we set intentions. And part of that intention setting is that you're reframing limiting beliefs. That you have a belief in your life that has been holding you back. And when you set that intention, you're challenging a narrative that drains you. Hey, I've had this belief before. I no longer want to believe that. I want to operate from this level. And that with breathwork, it can help you cultivate mindfulness, which is returning to the present moment. Instead of ruminating on the past or having anxiety about the future, you can live right now. And oftentimes, the present moment that we're living in is perfectly fine. That we have very few moments in our life in which we should have anxiety about, at least if you're living your life well. And that allows you to simplify. When I realized how many open loops of commitments I had in my life that I had not fulfilled, I became a lot more restrictive about commitments that I made to people. Very few. Will you commit to this? Absolutely not. That's a hard no from me, big dog. We'll give that a strong maybe. So it allows you to streamline. And when you streamline, it allows you to focus on what matters.
To your last point about people often quitting in the middle because that's the messiest part, I regularly have this kind of thought of big wide room and I'm standing at the top of the room and there's just open boxes everywhere. And some of them are full and some of them are almost empty and there is no organization and there might be some repetition and I don't actually know what's in all the boxes, and the only thing that I ever think is who lives here. what is this? This is a mess and someone needs to clean it up. And it just reminds me that healing is not linear and it doesn't work that way. And the more you try to let go of that control and just look in the boxes that come up, the easier things are.
Look in the box. Look at the things that come up in that box and handle it.
Yeah.
You don't have to handle all the boxes at once. Like, this is the box we're looking at today. I will clean out this area. I have been traveling for the last 2 weeks. My house looks like it's been stirred with a stick. The studio is disheveled. I am unhappy with that. I like things very organized and orderly. I got up this morning and the goal was I organized 2 areas of my house.
Yeah.
I didn't organize the whole house. I would still be there. I would be doing nothing else all day. I'd be completely exhausted and spent. But it's all right, I'm going to spend an hour doing this morning. I'll spend an hour doing it every day for the next week, and it'll be fine.
Yeah. To that point, yes, absolutely. Look in the box and handle what's there. But more often than not, you're not going to handle everything in the box at once.
Correct. Yeah. Do what you can and then move along.
It doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to be better.
Yep. Just has to be done.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, what happens when you have that mental clarity is when you have mental clarity, a clear mind is a conduit for creativity and high frequency energy. It's easier to cook a full meal in a kitchen that's clean. It's easier to do art on an empty canvas. Mm-hmm. That if all of that stuff is cluttered, it becomes very easy to do great work. And that clearing your mind becomes that clear canvas, becomes that canvas that you can do work on in the world.
Absolutely.
Next up is spiritual alignment, tapping into your purpose. That when you connect to something greater, whether it's purpose, faith, universal connection, a service project that aligns with your values, that you are doing work that energizes you rather than depletes you. And that's one of the things that we say about fulfillment is work that fills you with energy that other people appreciate. So if you're doing work that depletes you, that's going to be doing the grind. If you are doing work that gives you energy but no one else appreciates, that's basically masturbation. That you have to have both sides of it. And when I say masturbation, it's self-pleasure. Hey, I really like playing video games. Yes, no one else likes watching you play video games. You're not that exciting. You're not that great. You are doing nothing to elevate the world, my friend. And yeah. So one of the things I noticed when it comes to doing work that you're in alignment with, one of the things I noticed when I was meditating, it was like, why am I fat? There's an energy. Why is there an energy imbalance? Because that's what that is. Like, I'm consuming more energy than I'm using. Why is my body not telling me that I have energy when I have energy? I clearly have energy because I'm storing fat. And I realized it's like the amount of work that I was doing that I didn't want to do was overwhelming. It was just an overwhelming level of work, and that the more work I did that I didn't want to do, it was disconnecting me from my own energy. And then I would do all this work, and then I would want to eat because I wanted energy, but my body wasn't releasing it to me because of the type of work that I was doing. And then you see people who are excessively skinny that they're wired into their energy all the time. And they aren't able to disconnect or modulate that energy from themselves. And that when we can connect ourselves into a full and wholesome way, that allows us to moderate that so that we can connect to the energy that we have with us, and then we can resolve and bring that energy into balance. And that when our actions align with our values, and those values align with our purpose, that energy becomes abundant and we can fully commit ourselves. And that integration is part of building momentum. I often talk about stacking skills, that you have 5 or 6 things in your life that you're skillful at and that you have talent for. And that being skillful at one of those things may not be enough, but if you can stack those skill sets that you have and put them together, that's going to make you more valuable. I think in general, one of the most valuable traits, one of the most valuable skills that you can develop is public speaking. Though no matter what you're doing, if you learn to be a public speaker, it immediately elevates you in that area and makes you more valuable. But then you can also start to stack habits in the rest of your life so that it creates a flywheel of success, a flywheel of momentum, that it gives you this energy, that the energy feeds on itself and builds more energy. That a nutritious breakfast, a gratitude practice, take care of yourself physically, adding breath work, that it becomes this virtuous cycle of not just achievement, but a way of being. And that it allows you to celebrate success, that you can notice your small wins and have upward spirals. And that as energy inflows, you can reassess regularly. And that the more in touch with your energy you become, the easier it is for you to assess, oh, this was good for me, this was elevating, oh, this detracted from me, I shouldn't do that again. Whereas when you're in that state of disconnection, it's very difficult to tell, oh, this was difficult but uplifting, as opposed to this was easy but ultimately brought me down. And that as you begin to create that virtuous upward spiral of being in an energetic state that allows you to share that energy and to radiate that outward, and that your energy becomes contagious, that your energy is always contagious, whether it's positive or negative, and that you can use it not just to uplift yourself, but to uplift others, and that you can give without depletion, and that you can maintain your boundaries without overgiving. It allows you to stay curious about other people, that it can create a growth and challenge and energetic dynamic, and that you can accept opinions from other people and allow yourself to be persuaded. And that high energy isn't about just feeling good. It's about becoming a source of empowerment in life. Which brings us to equanimity. We touched on that a little bit earlier. That equanimity is a calm, composure, and steadiness, especially in difficult circumstances, but it's not passive. It's when your energy is no longer being hijacked by reactivity. Most people chase performance or peak performance or motivation, but the deeper skill is learning how to manage energy through cycles of stress and recovery. That without burning out or numbing or trying to live at redline, that running a 100-meter sprint is exciting. But you can't live running 100-meter sprints all the time. That life is more like a marathon. And equanimity is the capacity to stay centered and effective across the whole course. And at its core, developing equanimity, it can be developed. It can be trained. It's the same way that we build strong bodies, that we do it through repeated reps. And the reps that we're going to repeat are going to be reps of awareness, regulation, perspective, until steadiness becomes your baseline, that there should be a steady element to you. And the principles that create equanimity, first is mindfulness, being aware of the present moment, that you can be stable in this present moment without judging it or condemning it, that when you notice what happens inside of your body, when you notice what happens inside of your mind in real time, you're no longer trapped inside the reaction, that you're observing it. And that tiny gap is where choice returns. You can ask yourself, what am I experiencing right now? What are the sensations, emotions, thoughts, without trying to fix it or control it or modify it? Non-attachment, releasing the need for control. Most control is an absolute illusion, that the only control that we have is what is our response going to be. And a huge portion of stress comes from trying to control outcomes that can't be controlled. And that equanimity grows when you shift from controlling life to guiding your responses. And it also helps you reduce your ego inflation, that success and failure stop defining you so that your inner state becomes less fragile. I like to think a lot of these things as experiments, and that, hey, this experiment worked, that experiment didn't. The experiment working or not working doesn't say anything about me. Hey, I tried this thing, I pushed the button, nothing happened. Push a different button. That doesn't say anything about me either. I'm just trying different things until I can figure out what gets the outcome I was looking for. Yeah,
without getting stuck in the hole that your value is somehow related to the outcome.
Correct. People are like, why would you do that? I was trying to figure something out.
It's for science, okay?
Science, yes. Absolutely. Emotional regulation, that you learn to train your nervous system, that equanimity is not just a mindset, that it is a regulated nervous system, that when stress rises, your breath and centeredness becomes the steering wheel, that naming your emotions can lower the intensity, and just having a long extended exhale signals safety, and it can signal regulation. that it can prevent stress from turning into reactivity. I think I've said this before, that I had a friend, every time I would take a big breath with a long exhale, he always thought I was, because of how I was previously, he always thought I was getting ready to explode. But I'd take this big breath, then a big, long, dramatic exhale, and then I'd be okay. But he was always ready. Nope, here we go. Took a while for him to let go of that. That you can reframe difficult experiences in your life, that you can convert stress into growth, that there is post-traumatic stress disorder, but there's also a thing called post-traumatic growth, and that stress isn't the enemy, it's just data, it's training, and that when you stop interpreting pressure as proof that something is wrong and start treating it as an opportunity to build capacity, that the longer term your view becomes, it reduces urgency and restores clear thinking. That one of the best things I've found for my life is like, is this going to matter in 5 years? And it's no. All right. What are we so wrapped up around the axle about it today for then? Like, why don't we, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, why don't we handle it with the appropriate care that it deserves?
Yeah.
That you build capacity through cycles in the same way that we do reps when we're lifting weights. You need to do reps with your mind. You need to do reps with your emotions. That peak function isn't being about constant intensity. You don't work out all day at maximum intensity. That it's a rhythm of putting yourselves under load and then recovery. And recovery isn't laziness. It's maintenance. That when you repeat cycles between effort and rest, the same way that we do with our breath work, that our breath work is we have a lot of effort on the inhale and then we relax on the exhale, that it gives you that opportunity to practice effort and relax, effort and relax. And when you ignore that cycle, it's going to end up depleting you, and most people call it ambition, which is like the difference between ambition. Ambition is the ego saying, I need to achieve, and aspiration is your spirit saying, this is what I need to give the world.
Okay, that's a very good clarification.
Yes. Giving up your ambition doesn't mean you're just going to sit on a pillow and become a bum for the rest of your life. That there is something in you that needs to be expressed into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, the bum thing sounds nice, though. I got stuff to do, though.
It sounds nice. You'd make it about 3 days.
Probably true, yeah.
And then you'd be like, I'm breaking out of here and we're building. Ask me how I know. Compassion. Compassion for yourself removes the inner world. That compassion removes the hostility of your inner voice towards yourself and to others. That it reduces the threat physiology in your life when you have compassion for yourself. When you're kind to your imperfections and you stop wasting energy on self-attack and regain clarity. I can't overemphasize how much positive feedback changes everything in your life, even when things don't go well. Saying you can do better, or I expected better than that, is far different than having that negative voice saying harsh things to you.
Yeah. One
of the oddities in how I speak is that I almost say a positive thing with a negative term in front of it. I won't say, oh, that was bad. I'll go, that was not delightful.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same harshness to it.
But much like when we set intentions, when I go, your mind can't comprehend not. I don't want to be afraid. Your body creates more fear. And I said, that was not delightful. What do you focus on? Let's make that delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Self-reflection. The learning loop, that you can begin to build equanimity through reflection, through journaling, noticing what upsets you, how you respond, and what you choose next time, going through that journaling practice, turning experiences into learning, and that life design alignment turns learning into direction. What happened? What did I feel? What did I need? What will I try next time? That many times I've come up with solutions like, this is how I'd like to handle this next time. And then I handle it that in a way next time. And I'm like, that still didn't work. All right, let's try a different method.
Yeah.
And until you get to a place where you're getting the outcome that you want. And as always, one of the greatest things that you can do to help support equanimity in your life is borrowing regulation until you can hold it all on your own. That community and mentorship matter, being surrounded by people who are on a similar path to you, who want similar things to you in life, because that regulation is contagious. That when you start hanging out with people who are, like, if you're not very healthy and you're like, hey, I've looked around, all my 4 friends are not doing so well either. Maybe I should make more friends and hang out with people who are making that kind of change in their life. And when you do, it will embody that steadiness and it'll create that support structure for you so that you don't have to do it all alone and it doesn't have to be all your energy. So do a quick review. Energy is the capacity to create change or movement. Low energy is not a motivation problem. It's usually that your energy is allocated to protection from stress, suppression, rumination, identity defense, unresolved trauma loops, that emotions bind energy when they are resisted and they release energy when they're allowed to move. Trauma persists when the nervous system lacks the ending and when information is incomplete. Information reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is expensive. So healing isn't about becoming motivated. Healing is restoring access to your energy. And the roadmap is awareness of your baseline, physical foundations, emotional decluttering, mental clarity, spiritual alignment, integration, and a focus on expansion and creativity. And then the deeper mastery of mental resilience and emotional management, that being able to regulate your power through equanimity, and service is meaning in motion. And I believe you can live a life of meaning, of fulfillment, of impact, in which you're largely in a state of positive energy. You're going to have momentary negative moments in your life that are going to be difficult, but for the most part, more than 80% of your life should be in a place of positive energy, whether it's high or whether it's low. And then I think breathwork in our community can definitely help you with that. We're not the only method that can help you do that. There are other ways to do it as well, but I'll let them promote that. So, how you breathe is how you live. Take a big, deep breath.